The envelope was heavier than Zachary Torres expected, filled with glossy programs and tickets to the annual gala for Riverside Academy, the private school where he had once been a scholarship student struggling to fit in among Manhattan's elite children. Now at 28, standing in his penthouse overlooking Central Park, he found himself smiling at the irony of receiving an invitation to donate to a school that had once needed to waive his tuition entirely. He tossed the invitation onto his marble countertop and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows. The city sparkled below him, each light representing someone's dream, someone's struggle. 10 years ago, he had been one of those distant lights, barely visible. Today, he was the founder and CEO of Torres Hospitality Group, a hotel empire that had revolutionized luxury accommodations across 15 countries. His journey from food stamps to Forbes had been covered in every major publication, but what they never captured was the loneliness that came with being self-made. The invitation kept drawing his eye. He picked it up again, scanning the list of honored guests. His breath caught when he saw her name, Willow Carmichael, Teacher of the Decade Award recipient. Mrs. Carmichael. No, she would have been Miss Carmichael back then. His English teacher during senior year, the woman who had stayed after school 3 days a week to help him improve his writing, who had written the recommendation letter that got him into Columbia on a full scholarship, who had believed in him when he barely believed in himself. He wondered if she would remember him. He had been one of hundreds of students over the years, a quiet kid who sat in the back and tried to be invisible. But she had seen him anyway, had noticed when he turned in an essay about growing up in a 1-bedroom apartment with his mother and 2 sisters, about watching his mother work 3 jobs to keep them fed. She had pulled him aside after class and told him his words had power, that he had a gift for making people feel what he felt. Zachary made a decision. He would go to the gala. He would see Miss Carmichael again and thank her properly. And he would write a check large enough to fund scholarships for 100 kids like the one he used to be. The Plaza Hotel ballroom glittered with Manhattan society 3 weeks later. Zachary adjusted his Tom Ford tuxedo, uncomfortable despite the perfect tailoring. He had learned to wear wealth well, had mastered the art of confidence, but rooms like this still reminded him of being 17 and borrowing a suit from the drama department for the senior awards ceremony. He made his way through the crowd, shaking hands with board members who recognized him from business publications, deflecting questions about his next expansion with practiced ease. The whole time, his eyes searched for her. Would he even recognize her after 11 years? She had been in her mid-30s then, young for a teacher, with auburn hair she wore in a practical bun and a smile that made students feel safe. Then he saw her, and his heart did something unexpected. She stood near the bar, wearing a simple navy dress that was elegant without trying to compete with the designer gowns around her. Her hair was shorter now, falling just past her shoulders in soft waves, and she looked both exactly as he remembered and completely different. She was laughing at something a colleague said, her whole face lighting up with genuine warmth. She was beautiful in a way that had nothing to do with the polished perfection surrounding them and everything to do with authenticity. Zachary found himself walking toward her before he had fully decided to. His palms were sweating, which was ridiculous. He negotiated deals worth hundreds of millions without breaking a sweat, but approaching his former English teacher made him feel like a nervous teenager again. She turned as he approached, her eyes meeting his with polite curiosity that turned to surprise as recognition dawned. "Zachary Torres," she said, her voice exactly as he remembered. "Is that really you, Miss Carmichael?" He couldn't help grinning. "I wasn't sure you would remember me." "Remember you?" Zachary, you sent me a Christmas card from Colombia for 4 years, and I've been following your success. Torres Hospitality Group. I've told everyone I taught you. She shook her head in wonder. Look at you. I always knew you would do something extraordinary. The pride in her voice did something to his chest, made something warm bloom there. I wanted to thank you. I never got to properly. You changed my life. You did that yourself. I just helped you see what was already there. She studied his face, her expression soft. You look well. Happy. Successful, he corrected. I'm not sure those are the same thing. Something flickered in her eyes, understanding maybe. Before she could respond, an announcement called everyone to their seats for dinner. Zachary glanced at his table assignment, then at hers. They were on opposite sides of the room. Would you think I was abusing my donor status if I rearranged the seating chart? He asked. She laughed. I think you've earned some privileges. But Zachary, you don't need to sit with the teachers. You should be networking with the board. I've been networking for a decade. Tonight, I'd rather talk to someone who knew me when I had nothing and looked at me like I could have everything anyway. Her smile turned gentle, touched. Then I would love to have dinner with you. He made the arrangements quickly. Money and status opened doors, and within minutes, they were seated together at a table that suddenly felt removed from the rest of the glittering ballroom. As courses came and went, painstakingly prepared by chefs who would have been horrified by the TV dinners of his childhood, Zachary found himself talking more freely than he had in years. She told him about her life, how she was now 39 and still teaching at Riverside despite offers from universities. I love teenagers, she said. Everyone thinks they're difficult, but they're just figuring out who they are. That's when they need guidance most. That's when a teacher can actually make a difference. You made a difference to me, he said quietly. I don't think I ever told you how much. My mother worked so hard, but she was exhausted all the time. My sisters needed her more than I did. I was planning to skip college, get a job to help with bills. Then you sat me down and told me that would be the biggest mistake of my life. Willow nodded, remembering. You had such potential. I couldn't let you waste it. You stayed late 3 days a week to tutor me. You bought me SAT prep books and told my mother they were extras from the school. I found the receipt in one of them, $200. I looked up your salary later. That was a lot of money for you. She looked down at her plate, a slight flush coloring her cheeks. You were worth it. And look where you are now. You've built an empire. I built hotels, he said, places for people to stay, but I haven't built much of a life outside them. She looked up at him then, really looked at him. You're lonely. It wasn't a question, and he found he couldn't lie to her. Yes. Success isn't what you thought it would be. Success is exactly what I thought it would be. Money, respect, security for my family. My mother retired at 55. My sisters both have houses. I did what I set out to do. He paused. But somewhere along the way, I forgot to build anything for myself beyond the business. Willow reached across the table, her hand covering his briefly. The touch was warm, comforting, but it sent electricity through him that was anything but comfortable. You're still young, Zachary. You have time to figure out what you want your life to look like. What about you? Are you happy? She considered this, her expression thoughtful. I love my work. I have wonderful friends, a nice apartment in Brooklyn that I can actually afford. I date occasionally, though nothing has stuck. She smiled ruefully. I suppose I have high standards. I spend all day with young people who are full of passion and possibility. It makes me impatient with people who have given up on dreams, who have settled for comfort over joy. You never married. I was engaged once, in my late 20s. He was a lawyer, very practical, very stable. Right before the wedding, I realized I was marrying him because he looked good on paper, not because I could imagine waking up next to him for 50 years. I called it off. He thought I was crazy. she shrugged. Maybe I am. Maybe I'm too romantic for my own good. Or maybe you just knew what you wanted wasn't what he could give you. Perhaps. She studied him again. Do you date? I have attended events with various women, he said carefully. But most of them are interested in Zachary Torres, CEO, not Zachary Torres, person who still gets nervous giving speeches and likes terrible action movies. She laughed. You always did love those ridiculous action books. I remember you reading Tom Clancy during lunch. Still do. My colleagues think I read the Wall Street Journal in my spare time. Really, I'm reading spy thrillers. They talked through dinner, through dessert, through the speeches and awards. When Willow went on stage to accept her award, Zachary watched with pride as she gave a speech about the importance of seeing students as individuals, of believing in them even when they didn't believe in themselves. He knew she was talking about him, among others, and his throat tightened. After the ceremony, as people mingled and the ballroom slowly emptied, he found her again. This might be forward, he said, but I don't want a night to end. Would you have coffee with me? I know a place that stays open late. She hesitated for only a moment. I would like that. They took his car, a midnight blue Aston Martin that made her raise her eyebrows. This seems impractical for New York City. Extremely. I mostly walk or take the subway, but sometimes I drive late at night when the streets are empty. It helps me think. He took her to a small cafe in the village, the kind of place that survived on students and insomniacs, where nobody cared that he was wearing a $5,000 tuxedo. They ordered coffee and pastries and talked for 3 more hours, about books and movies and philosophy, about his mother's pride in his success, and her father's confusion about why she had chosen teaching over law. They talked about dreams they still had, fears they rarely voiced, the strange isolation of being good at what you do but feeling disconnected from the people around you. At 2 in the morning, he drove her home to her brownstone in Park Slope. The neighborhood was quiet, tree-lined, the kind of place that felt like a small town within the city. Thank you for tonight, she said, lingering in the passenger seat. I needed this more than I realized. Sometimes I forget there are people who understand why I make the choices I do. Would you have dinner with me again? A real dinner, not a charity event, she smiled. Are you asking out your former teacher, Mr. Torres? I'm asking out a beautiful, intelligent woman who I would very much like to know better. The fact that she once taught me the proper use of semicolons is just a bonus. You remember the semicolon lesson. You made it surprisingly interesting. She laughed, then grew serious. I would like that. But Zachary, you should know that I'm not someone who dates casually. I'm not interested in being another event companion. If we do this, I need it to be real. I wouldn't ask if I wanted anything else. She searched his face for a long moment, then nodded. Friday night, Friday night. He walked her to her door, resisting the urge to kiss her only because it felt too soon, because he wanted to do this right. Instead, he took her hand and squeezed it gently. Good night, Willow. Good night, Zachary. He drove home through empty streets, the city lights blurring past, and for the first time in years, he felt something beyond satisfaction at closing a deal or expanding his empire. He felt possibility. He felt hope. The week crawled by. Zachary found himself distracted in meetings, checking his phone more than usual, counting down to Friday. His assistant, Maria, noticed immediately. You have that look, she said on Wednesday, bringing him his afternoon espresso. What look? The look people get when they've met someone. I've worked for you for 5 years, and I've never seen you check your phone this much during a conference call. He had the grace to look sheepish. I reconnected with someone at the gala, my former teacher. Maria's eyebrows rose. That's unexpected, good unexpected, very good unexpected. We're having dinner Friday. Well, it's about time. You work too much. You need someone who makes you remember there's more to life than quarterly earnings. He thought about Willow's laugh, the way she had looked at him like she saw past the suits and the success to the person underneath. She does that. Friday arrived finally. He made reservations at a quiet Italian restaurant in Soho, the kind of place that focused on food rather than being seen. He picked her up at 7, and when she answered the door in a simple green dress that brought out the flecks of gold in her hazel eyes, his breath caught. "You look beautiful." She smiled, pleased. "You clean up nicely yourself." "Though I have to admit, I'm more used to seeing you in a Riverside Academy uniform. The tailored suit is quite different." "I've upgraded my wardrobe since then. Dinner was perfect." They shared pasta and wine, argued cheerfully about whether Shakespeare was overrated, discovered they both loved hiking and had both traveled extensively, though his travels were usually for work while hers were for summer breaks. The conversation flowed easily, naturally, punctuated by laughter, and the kind of comfortable silences that only happen when people genuinely enjoy each other's company. Over dessert, she asked about his business. "Tell me what you actually do." "I've read the articles, but they always make it sound so sterile. Hotels and acquisitions and market penetration. What's it really like?" He thought about how to explain it. "I create spaces where people feel special. That's what it comes down to. I grew up in places that made me feel small, invisible. Cramped apartments, shelters when things got really bad, cheap motels where the staff looked at us like we were dirt. I promised myself that if I ever had the chance, I would create the opposite. Places that make everyone feel valued, whether they're staying in a $1,000 a night suite or a $200 standard room." Her expression softened. "That's beautiful. The articles never mention that part. Business journalists aren't interested in motivation. They want numbers and strategy. But that's what drives me. Every hotel I open, I think about the kid I was, and I make sure that even the family on a budget vacation feels welcomed and important. You haven't forgotten where you came from. Never. It's why I'm endowing scholarships at Riverside. 100 full rides for students from low-income families. I'm announcing it next week." Willow's eyes widened. "Zachary, that's incredible. Do you know how many lives you'll change? Hopefully 100. The way you changed mine." She shook her head. "I just saw what was already there. You did the hard work. We can both be right. You saw it, I did it. Team effort." After dinner, they walked through the streets of Soho, past art galleries and boutiques, the warm spring air carrying the scent of flowers from window boxes. He found himself reaching for her hand, and she let him take it, her fingers lacing through his naturally. "This is strange," she said after a moment. "Good strange, but strange. I keep thinking about you as my student, but you're not anymore. You haven't been for a long time. Does it bother you?" "The fact that you were my teacher, a little. Not because I think it's wrong, we're both adults now, and there was never anything inappropriate when you were my student, but I'm worried people will judge. 11 years is a significant age gap. You're 39, I'm 28. We're both grown adults, and honestly, I feel like we're more on the same wavelength than any woman my age I've dated." "Why is that, do you think?" he considered. "Maybe because I've lived a lot in the past 10 years. Building a business from nothing ages you, forces you to grow up fast. I don't have patience for games or surface-level connections. I want something real, something deep. And most people my age are still figuring out who they are, while you've built an empire. While I've built hotels and lost myself a little in the process." He stopped walking, turning to face her. "Being with you, I feel like myself again. Like the person I was before I had to become Zachary Torres, CEO. Does that make sense?" Yes, she said softly. It makes perfect sense. I feel like I'm talking to a friend I've known forever, not someone I taught junior year English, senior year. What? You taught me senior year. Junior year I had Mr. Patterson, who spent more time discussing his divorce than teaching us literature. She laughed. Right, I remember now. You came into my class already a good writer. I just helped you refine your voice. You did more than that. You made me believe my voice mattered. They stood on the corner of Spring and Broadway, the city moving around them, and he cupped her face in his hands. I'm going to kiss you now, if that's all right. That's all right, she whispered. He kissed her softly at first, tentative, giving her space to pull away. But she leaned into him instead, her hands sliding up to his shoulders, and the kiss deepened. It was electric and tender at the same time, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both breathing harder, he rested his forehead against hers. I've been wanting to do that since the gala. I've been wanting you to do that since the gala. So we're on the same page. Completely. He took her home reluctantly, kissing her again at her door, longer this time, until her neighbor's porch light flickered on and they broke apart laughing. I should go inside, she said, flushed and smiling. When can I see you again? Tomorrow. I know it's soon, but I have the weekend free and I would love to spend it with you. Tomorrow, he agreed. I'll pick you up at noon. Wear comfortable shoes. Where are we going? It's a surprise. The next day, he took her hiking in Bear Mountain State Park, an hour north of the city. They climbed trails surrounded by spring wildflowers, talked about everything and nothing, stopped at a viewpoint overlooking the Hudson River to share sandwiches he had packed. It felt easy, natural, like they had been doing this for years instead of days. I haven't done this in forever, Willow said, tilting her face up to the sun. I forget how much I love being outside the city. I come up here when I need to think. It helps me put things in perspective. What do you think about? Usually business. Expansion plans, problem properties, difficult decisions. He paused. Lately, I've been thinking about you. She looked at him, shading her eyes against the sun. What about me? About how unexpected this is, how right it feels. How I'm already dreading Monday when you'll be teaching and I'll be in meetings and we won't have this time. So let's not waste the time we have now. They hiked for hours, until the sun started to sink toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. On the drive back to the city, she fell asleep with her head against the window, and he found himself glancing at her every few minutes, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her lips curved slightly even in sleep. This was dangerous, he realized. He was falling for her fast and hard without the careful consideration he applied to every other aspect of his life. But for once, he didn't want to be careful. He wanted to feel everything, risk everything, for the possibility of something real. They fell into a rhythm over the following weeks. He picked her up after school on Wednesdays, and they would have dinner at small restaurants in her neighborhood, places where they could talk without being interrupted. On weekends, they explored the city together, visiting museums and galleries, catching Broadway shows, walking through Central Park as spring turned to early summer. He met her friends, a tight-knit group of teachers who welcomed him warmly once they got over their initial surprise. Her best friend, another teacher named Sarah, pulled him aside at a dinner party. "You're good for her," Sarah said. "I've known Willow for 10 years and I've never seen her this happy. Just promise me you're serious about her. She doesn't give her heart easily." "I'm serious," he said without hesitation. "I've never been more serious about anything that didn't involve a business contract. Good. Because if you hurt her, I know where you live. That's fair." She introduced him to her father, a retired judge who grilled him over Sunday brunch about his intentions and his business practices. Zachary answered every question honestly, Understanding this was a test he needed to pass. By the end of brunch, Judge Carmichael was shaking his hand and telling Willow she had chosen well. Willow met his mother and sisters at his mother's house in Queens, the modest home he had bought for her once his business took off. His mother had cried when she met Willow, pulling her into a hug. "You're the teacher," his mother said in her accented English. "The one who helped my Zachary. I always wanted to thank you." "Your son is remarkable," Willow said warmly. "You should be very proud." "I am. Every day I am." His mother looked between them, her eyes knowing, "And now he is happy." This is all I wanted for him. His sisters, Rosa and Carmen, were less subtle. Rosa cornered Willow in the kitchen while they were helping with dishes. "Are you going to marry him?" Rosa asked bluntly. Willow laughed, surprised. "We've only been dating 2 months. So, when you know, you know. And I can see the way he looks at you. Like you hung the moon. He's never looked at anyone like that." Carmen nodded. "It's true. We were starting to think he would marry his business. But then he mentioned you and his whole face changed. You made him remember he's human, not just a CEO." "I care about him very much," Willow said carefully, "but marriage is a big step." "Just don't make him wait too long," Rosa said. "He's been waiting his whole life for someone to see him, really see him. You do. That's rare." Later, as Zachary drove Willow back to Brooklyn, she was quiet. "What's on your mind?" he asked. "Your family loves you very much." "They do. I'm lucky." "Your sisters think we're going to get married." He glanced at her, trying to read her expression. "Does that scare you a little? Not the idea of it, but the speed." "We've only been dating 8 weeks, Zachary. That's not very long." "It's long enough for me to know I'm in love with you." The words hung in the air between them. He hadn't planned to say them, not yet, but they were true and he was tired of holding them back. She was silent for a long moment and panic started to creep in. Had he moved too fast, pushed too hard? But then she reached over and took his hand. "I love you too," she said quietly. "That's what scares me. I've never felt like this before, like you're already essential to my happiness. It's intense and wonderful and terrifying all at once." He pulled over at the next corner, putting the car in park so he could turn to face her fully. "I know it's fast. I know we should probably be more cautious. But Willow, I've spent my entire adult life being careful, calculating every risk, planning every move. And none of it made me as happy as 2 months with you. I don't want to waste time being cautious when I could be building a life with you." "What kind of life?" "Whatever kind we want. I know you love teaching, and I would never ask you to give that up. I love that about you, how committed you are to your students. And yes, my schedule is demanding, but I own the company. I can make changes, delegate more, make sure we have time together. We can figure out the logistics. The question is, do you want to try?" She cupped his face in her hands. "Yes. Yes, I want to try." He kissed her then, pouring all his love and hope and promise into it. When they broke apart, both of them were smiling. "Just so we're clear," she said, "I'm not moving into your penthouse. At least not yet. I need my own space, my independence. I wouldn't expect anything else, though I'm hoping you'll spend more nights there. It's too empty without you. I can do that." They settled into being officially in love, and it changed everything while changing nothing. They still had their dinner dates and weekend adventures, but now there was an ease between them, a security in knowing they were building toward something permanent. Zachary started working from home more often, taking meetings by video when possible, learning to delegate tasks he had previously insisted on handling himself. His executives were surprised but pleased. He was more relaxed, quicker to smile, less likely to work through the night obsessing over details. "Whatever you're doing, keep doing it," his CFO told him during a quarterly review. "You're still making all the right calls, but you're not burning yourself out anymore. I have someone who makes me want to have a life outside this office." Zachary said. Then hold on to her. Good partners are rarer than good business opportunities. Willow maintained her teaching schedule, but she started spending Thursday nights at his penthouse, then Friday nights, then most weekends. Her presence softened the sleek modern space, made it feel like a home instead of a showplace. She left books on his coffee table, her favorite tea in his kitchen, a spare pair of glasses on his nightstand. He loved every addition, every sign that she was becoming part of his life. 4 months into their relationship, he took her to Paris for a long weekend. She had been once before, a college graduation trip, but that had been budget hotels and hostel stays. He showed her a different Paris, booking a suite at his company's flagship hotel overlooking the Seine, arranging private tours of the Louvre and Versailles, taking her to restaurants where the food was art. "This is too much," she said on their first night, standing on their balcony looking out at the Eiffel Tower sparkling in the darkness. "It's not enough. I want to give you everything." "Zachary, I don't need grand gestures. I just need you. I know, but let me do this anyway. Let me show you the world. You've spent your career helping other people reach their dreams. Let me help you reach yours." She turned to him, her eyes soft in the lamplight. "You're my dream. I didn't know it until I found you again, but you are. Everything else is just beautiful decoration." They made love that night with the lights of Paris glowing through the windows, slow and tender and full of love. Afterward, lying tangled together in expensive sheets, he held her close and thought about rings, about proposals, about forever. "What are you thinking?" She murmured against his chest, "That I want to marry you." She lifted her head to look at him. "Is that a proposal?" "Not yet. When I propose, it will be special, but I wanted you to know what I'm thinking, where my head is. I don't want to surprise you with something this important." She smiled, kissing him softly. "I appreciate that. And for the record, I'm thinking the same thing. Not right this second. We should probably date longer than 4 months before we get engaged. But I can see it. I can see us building a life together, and I want that. How long should we date?" "What's the proper timeline?" "I don't know. 6 months, a year. There's no rule book for this. What if I don't want to wait a year?" "Then we'll figure it out together. That's what relationships are, right? Figuring things out together." They stayed in Paris for 4 days, wandering through museums and cafes, kissing on bridges, being tourists and lovers and best friends all at once. On their last night, they sat at a sidewalk cafe in Montmartre, sharing wine and watching artists paint. "Thank you for this," Willow said. "For reminding me that life can be magical. Thank you for making me want magic instead of just success. We're quite a pair, the best pair." When they returned to New York, reality settled back in with its demands and schedules, but something had shifted. They were more certain now, more committed. They started talking about practical things, about where they would live eventually, how many children they wanted, what their future looked like in concrete terms rather than abstract hopes. 6 months after their first date, Zachary took her back to Riverside Academy. They walked through the empty hallways on a Sunday afternoon, her showing him her classroom, pointing out where he used to sit. "You were such a quiet student," she said. "I remember worrying about you, wondering what was going on in that head of yours. I was trying to survive, trying to figure out how to escape poverty without losing my family in the process. You managed it beautifully. Your mother and sisters adore you, and you've built something incredible. Because you helped me believe I could." He took her hand, leading her to the front of the classroom. "This is where it started. You standing here, me sitting in the 3rd row, and you talking about the power of words to change lives. I was 17 and tired and scared, and you made me think that maybe I had a chance after all. And now look at you. You're changing lives yourself. The scholarship program launched last month. 50 students are getting their chance because of you. 100 students. I increased it." He smiled at her surprise. "I talked to Maria about the budget and we can afford more. Why stop at 50 when we can help 100? She threw her arms around him, and he held her close, breathing in the scent of her perfume, feeling the rightness of this moment. In the classroom where she had first believed in him, he got down on one knee. "Willow Carmichael, you changed my life twice. Once when I was 17 and lost, and again when I was 28 and lonely. You see me, the real me, and you love me anyway. You make me want to be better, do more, feel everything. I can't imagine my life without you in it, and I don't want to try. Will you marry me?" He pulled out a ring, a princess-cut diamond set in platinum, elegant and classic like her. She was crying, nodding before he finished the question. "Yes. Yes. Absolutely yes." He slid the ring onto her finger and she pulled him up, kissing him hard. They stood in the empty classroom, holding each other, and he felt complete in a way he never had before. "I can't believe you proposed in my classroom. It felt right. This is where our story really started. I love you so much. I love you too. Forever." They got married 6 months later in a ceremony that blended both their worlds. It was held at his hotel in Manhattan, but she chose the simple, elegant flowers, and her teacher friends mingled with his business associates. His mother cried through the entire ceremony, and her father gave a toast about how he had never seen his daughter happier. Zachary stood at the altar watching Willow walk down the aisle toward him, and he thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a struggling student to a successful CEO, from a charitable teacher to the love of his life. She had believed in him when he was nothing, and now she chose to be with him even though he had everything. Their vows were simple but heartfelt. She promised to challenge him, support him, and remind him of what truly mattered. He promised to cherish her, respect her independence, and build a life that honored both their dreams. "I promise to never forget where I came from," he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his chest. "And I promise to always remember that the best thing I ever achieved was earning your love. I promise to see you, really see you for the rest of my life," she said, tears streaming down her face. Not the CEO, not the success story, but Zachary. The man who loves terrible action movies and thinks semicolons are exciting, and who has the biggest heart of anyone I've ever known. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife, the room erupted in applause. He kissed her thoroughly, not caring that everyone was watching, and she laughed against his lips. "Hello, Mrs. Torres. Hello, Mr. Carmichael Torres." He pulled back, surprised. "You want to hyphenate? I want to keep my name too. I've been Willow Carmichael for 39 years. But I also want your name, want to be connected to you officially. Is that all right?" "It's perfect." They danced their first dance to a jazz standard, swaying close while their friends and family watched. She fit perfectly in his arms, her head resting on his shoulder, and he thought about all the first dances they would have in their future. "Happy," he murmured, "impossibly happy. I didn't know I could feel like this. Content and excited at the same time. That's what love does. It makes everything feel possible." They honeymooned in Thailand, spending 2 weeks exploring temples and beaches, eating street food and luxury meals with equal enthusiasm. Willow had wanted adventure, and he gave it to her, booking them on a tour that took them from Bangkok to Chiang Mai to the islands. They rode elephants and took cooking classes and got lost in night markets, and every moment felt like an adventure because they were together. On a beach in Phuket, watching the sunset paint the sky in impossible colors, she turned to him with a serious expression. "I think I want to take a sabbatical next year." He sat up from where he had been lounging in the sand. "Really? Why? I've been teaching for 17 years. I love it, but I'm feeling burnt out. And I want time with you, time to figure out who we are as a married couple without the pressure of our individual careers pulling us in different directions. What would you do with a sabbatical? Travel with you. Work on that novel I've been thinking about for years. Maybe volunteer with literacy programs in other countries. I don't know exactly, but I want space to figure it out. Then take it. Take a year, 2 years, whatever you need. We can afford it, and if anyone has earned a break, it's you. She leaned against him, her head on his shoulder. You won't resent me for not working. Never. Willow, I have more money than we could spend in 3 lifetimes. What's the point of it if we can't use it to buy time together, to let you explore what you want to do next? I might decide I want to go back to teaching. That's fine too. Whatever you choose, I support it. She kissed him, slow and sweet. Thank you for understanding. Thank you for choosing me. They returned to New York renewed and ready for their next chapter. Willow applied for her sabbatical, which was approved with glowing recommendations from her principal. They spent the next year traveling, dividing their time between his business trips and pure vacation. She came with him to hotel openings in Dubai and Tokyo, then they would extend the trips to explore the regions. She wrote every morning, disappearing into coffee shops with her laptop, coming back energized and excited about her progress. Zachary watched her bloom during that year. Without the stress of teaching, she seemed lighter, more playful. She laughed more, tried new things, took risks she had been too cautious to attempt before. And he found himself relaxing too, letting his executives handle more of the day-to-day operations while he focused on strategy and vision. I think I've been doing this wrong, he told her one night in Singapore. They were in their hotel room, preparing for a gala to celebrate the opening of their newest property. Doing what wrong? Running my company. I've been so hands-on, trying to control every detail. But this year, stepping back more, I've realized my team is incredibly capable. They don't need me micromanaging. They need me setting direction and getting out of their way. That's very wise and probably healthier for you. It means more time with you, which is all I really want. She crossed the room to him, adjusting his bow tie. You know what I realized this year? I don't need to be teaching to make a difference. I've been volunteering with those literacy programs and I'm reaching just as many people, maybe more, because I'm not limited to one classroom. Are you thinking of not going back? I'm thinking I might want to start a nonprofit instead. Focus on literacy education in underserved communities. Use your resources and my experience to actually create systemic change. His heart swelled with pride. That's brilliant. Let's do it. Really. Just like that, just like that. We'll establish it under the Torres Foundation umbrella. You can run it however you want. Hire the best people, make real change. She threw her arms around him. I love you. I love that you don't just support my dreams, you help me make them bigger than I imagined. That's what partners do. They launched the Carmichael Torres Literacy Initiative the following year. Willow threw herself into it with the same passion she had brought to teaching, but now with resources that let her operate on a national scale. They established free tutoring centers in 12 cities, trained volunteer tutors, provided books and materials to schools that couldn't afford them. Zachary watched her shine as she spoke at fundraisers and press conferences, explaining her vision for making literacy accessible to every child. She was doing what she loved, making the difference she had always wanted to make, and he was honored to support it. 2 years into their marriage, they bought a brownstone in Brooklyn, halfway between her old apartment and his penthouse. They kept the penthouse for when they needed to be in Manhattan for work, but the brownstone became their real home. They spent weekends renovating it, choosing paint colors and furniture, arguing cheerfully about whether the kitchen needed marble or butcher block counters. "This is what I imagined marriage would be," Willow said one Saturday, covered in paint from helping him finish the guest bedroom. "Working together on something that's ours. Even when I accidentally painted your hair," she laughed, touching the blue streak in her auburn hair. "Especially then. We're terrible at home improvement, but we're having fun. Should we hire professionals? Absolutely. But let's finish this room ourselves first. I want to be able to say we did at least one room without help." They finished the room, badly but with love, and when they finally moved in fully, every imperfection reminded them of the laughter and teamwork that had gone into creating their home. Willow got pregnant 3 years into their marriage. They had been talking about children, planning for them, but when she showed him the positive test, his hands shook as he pulled her close. "We're having a baby." "We're having a baby," she confirmed, crying happy tears against his chest. "I'm going to be a father. You're going to be an amazing father, patient and supportive and loving. I'm terrified. Me too, but we'll figure it out together." Pregnancy suited her. She glowed, even when she was exhausted or nauseous, and he found himself falling in love with her all over again as he watched her body change and grow. He went to every doctor's appointment, read every book, prepared the nursery with the same attention to detail he brought to opening a new hotel. His mother was overjoyed, already knitting blankets and buying toys. His sisters threw Willow a baby shower that made her cry with its thoughtfulness and love. Her father called weekly to check on her, his gruff concern making her smile. "Your family loves me," she said one night, sitting on the couch with her feet in his lap while he rubbed them. "Of course they do. Your family now, and you're giving them the first grandchild. My mother has been waiting for this moment for years. What about your family? Your dad?" She shook her head. "He died when I was 12. Heart attack. It was sudden and awful, and my mom never really recovered. She passed 5 years ago, cancer. I'm sorry, I wish I could have met them. They would have loved you, my dad especially. He always said I should find someone who respected my mind as much as my heart. You do both. You make it easy." Their daughter was born on a snowy December evening, arriving 2 weeks early and completely perfect. They named her Alina Rose, and when the nurse placed her in his arms for the first time, Zachary Torres, CEO and millionaire and self-made success story, broke down and cried. "She's perfect," he whispered, staring at the tiny face, the miniature fingers wrapped around his thumb. "She's absolutely perfect." Willow watched them from the hospital bed, exhausted and radiant. "She has your eyes, she has your nose, and hopefully your heart. She has both of us, the best of both of us." Fatherhood transformed him in ways he hadn't expected. He had always been driven, focused, determined to succeed. But holding Alina, watching her sleep, hearing her first laugh, he understood what success really meant. It wasn't quarterly earnings or expansion into new markets. It was this: his daughter's smile, his wife's happiness. The family they had built together. He cut back his travel, delegated even more, restructured his roles so he could work from home most days. His executives adapted, and to his surprise, the company continued to thrive. Turned out he had hired well, and they were perfectly capable of handling operations while he provided strategic direction. "You've created something sustainable," Willow told him when Alina was 6 months old. They were sitting in the nursery, watching her sleep in her crib. "A business that doesn't need you there every second, that's the real achievement. The real achievement is right here. You and Alina, everything else is just how I pay the bills." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Very expensive bills. Fair point, but you know what I mean." "I do. And I'm proud of you. You've learned to balance ambition with presence. That's rare." Alina grew, and they grew with her. First steps and first words, first birthday party where both their families crowded into the brownstone, celebrating this little miracle who had brought them all even closer together. Zachary's mother barely put Alina down, speaking to her in rapid Spanish, singing her the same song she had sung to him as a child. When Alina was 2, Willow got pregnant again, this time with twins. Twins, Zachary repeated, staring at the ultrasound. We're having twins. I know. I'm as shocked as you are. The house is going to be chaos. Complete chaos, she agreed, grinning. Are you ready? He looked at her, at the woman who had believed in him when he was a struggling student, who had loved him when he was a workaholic CEO, who was now giving him a family beyond his wildest dreams. With you, I'm ready for anything. The twins, boys they named Marco and Sebastian, arrived on a warm June day, healthy and loud and absolutely perfect. Their household became beautifully chaotic, full of laughter and tears and the endless demands of 3 small children. They hired help, a nanny and a housekeeper, because even together they couldn't manage everything alone. But Zachary insisted on being present. He did morning routines, bath times, bedtime stories. He took Alina to the park while Willow nursed the twins. He learned to function on minimal sleep and to find joy in the smallest moments. This is what I worked for, he told Willow one night. They were sitting in their kitchen after finally getting all 3 children to sleep. They were exhausted, covered in various food stains, and completely happy. Not the money or the status. This, a family, a home full of love. We've built something beautiful, she agreed. Sometimes I can't believe this is my life, that I get to be married to you, raising these incredible children, doing work I love. Do you ever regret leaving teaching? She considered it. Sometimes I miss the classroom, but then I think about the literacy centers, the thousands of kids we're reaching instead of just 30 at a time, and I know I made the right choice. And honestly, being here with our children while they're small, I wouldn't trade this for anything. You can always go back if you want, to teaching or anything else. I know. That's the gift you've given me. Options. The freedom to choose what I want my life to look like. That's the gift you've given me too. You made me realize there was more to life than building an empire. You showed me what actually matters. They sat in comfortable silence, holding hands across the table, listening to the quiet house around them. This was success, Zachary thought. Not the penthouse or the private jets or seeing his name in Forbes. This. The woman he loved, the children sleeping upstairs, the life they had built together from mutual respect and love and partnership. Years passed in that beautiful chaos. Alina started kindergarten at Riverside Academy, where Willow's former colleagues spoiled her shamelessly. The twins followed 2 years later, 2 whirlwinds of energy and mischief. Zachary expanded his business into new markets, but it was balanced now, no longer the obsessive focus of his existence. Willow's nonprofit grew, opening centers in 30 cities, training thousands of tutors, providing books to schools across the country. She won awards for her work, gave TED talks about literacy and education equity, became a respected voice in the field. And through it all, she remained grounded, still the same woman who had stayed late to tutor a struggling student, who believed in people's potential. They celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary with a trip to Paris, their first time alone since the twins were born. Alina stayed with his mother, the twins with her father, and they spent a week rediscovering each other without the demands of children and work. 10 years, Willow said, lying in his arms in their hotel suite. It feels like both forever and no time at all. Best 10 years of my life, mine too. Though that first year was pretty great, before we had 3 tiny humans demanding all our attention, he laughed. They do that. But I wouldn't change it. Neither would I. Even when Marco tried to flush Sebastian's toy down the toilet, or when Alina decided to cut her own hair, or the time all three of them got food poisoning simultaneously. They laughed, remembering the chaos and the love, the hard moments and the perfect ones. This was marriage, Zachary thought. Not the wedding day or the honeymoon, but the decade that followed. The choosing each other every day, the growing together, the building of something that lasted. "Thank you," he said suddenly. "For what? For seeing me, then and now. For believing I could be more than a poor kid from Queens. For loving me when I was too focused on work. For giving me this family, for everything." She turned in his arms to face him. "Thank you for finding me again. For choosing me. For building a life that honors both our dreams. For being the partner I always hoped existed but wasn't sure I would find. I love you, Willow Carmichael Torres. I love you, Zachary Torres, my former student, my current husband, my forever person." They made love slowly, tenderly, with the practiced ease of two people who knew each other's bodies and hearts intimately. And afterward, holding her close, Zachary thought about the journey that had brought them here. From a high school classroom to a Parisian hotel room. From teacher and student to partners and lovers and parents, he had built an empire, yes, had achieved wealth and success beyond his teenage dreams. But the real achievement was this: the woman in his arms, the children waiting for them at home. The life they had created together from love and belief and partnership. They returned to New York renewed, ready for the next chapter. Alina was starting to show interest in writing, filling notebooks with stories about magic and adventure. The twins were obsessed with building things, spending hours with blocks and Legos, creating elaborate structures. Zachary watched them and saw potential, saw the future, saw the continuation of everything he and Willow had built. "They're going to be amazing," Willow said, watching the children play in the backyard of their brownstone. It was a Saturday afternoon, warm and perfect, the kind of day that demanded nothing but presence. "They have you as a mother. How could they be anything else? They have you as a father. They have your work ethic, your determination, your heart. They have our combined stubbornness. That should be interesting when they're teenagers," she laughed. "We'll handle it together, always together." The years continued to unfold. Alina grew into a thoughtful, creative child who loved books as much as her mother had. The twins developed distinct personalities, Marco quiet and analytical, Sebastian outgoing and charismatic. They were a family, imperfect and beautiful, full of love and laughter and occasional chaos. Zachary continued to run his company, but it no longer defined him. He was a father first, a husband, a person who had learned to value presence over profit. His executives respected this, and his business continued to thrive under his balanced leadership. Willow's nonprofit became her legacy, transforming literacy education across the country. She hired talented people, gave them resources and freedom, and watched them create change she had once only dreamed about. She still volunteered sometimes in their centers, tutoring students one-on-one, remembering why she had started this in the first place. They grew older together, their hair showing silver, their faces developing lines earned from laughter and love. They held hands walking through their neighborhood, attended school events for their children, celebrated anniversaries and birthdays and ordinary Tuesdays that felt extraordinary because they were together. When Alina was 15, she asked about how her parents met. They were sitting at dinner, all five of them, a rare evening when schedules aligned. "Your mother was my English teacher," Zachary said. "She changed my life." "That's weird," Sebastian said. "You married your teacher." "I married a woman I reconnected with as an adult," Willow corrected gently, "who happened to have been my teacher many years before. There's a difference." She was the first person who believed in me, Zachary continued, who saw past my circumstances to who I could become. And then, years later, we found each other again and discovered we were perfect for each other. That's romantic, Alina said dreamily. She was at the age where romance seemed magical rather than complicated. It is romantic, Marco agreed. Like a movie. Better than a movie, Zachary said, reaching for Willow's hand across the table, because it's real. Because we get to live it every day. Gross. They're being mushy again, Sebastian complained, but he was smiling. You'll understand someday, Willow told him. When you meet someone who makes you want to be better, who sees you completely and loves you anyway, that's worth being mushy about. Later, after the children were in bed, Zachary and Willow sat on their back porch, looking at the stars barely visible through the city's light pollution. Do you ever think about how different things could have been? Willow asked. If you hadn't come to the gala that night. If we hadn't reconnected. Sometimes. But I think we would have found each other eventually. Some things are meant to be. You believe in fate. I believe in you. And I believe that the best decision I ever made was walking up to you at that gala and hoping you remembered me. I would have been devastated if I hadn't gone that night, if I had stayed home instead. But you didn't. You went, I went, and we found each other again. And now we have this. He gestured at their home, their life, everything they had built. I wouldn't change a single thing. Not even the twins' terrible twos, he laughed. Okay, maybe I would change that. Those were rough years. But we survived them. We survive everything together. That's our superpower. She leaned against him, and they sat in comfortable silence. Two people who had found each other across years and circumstances, who had built something lasting from belief and love and partnership. Zachary thought about the boy he had been, sitting in Willow's classroom, afraid and hopeful and determined. That boy had become this man, successful and happy, because one teacher had taken the time to see him. And that teacher had become his wife, his partner, the love of his life. It was a story that felt impossible, too perfect to be real. But it was real. It was his life. And every day he woke up grateful for the second chances, the unexpected connections, the way love could transform everything when you found the right person. I love you, he said into the darkness. I love you too, she replied. Always. And in that moment, in that space, they were complete. Not because they had achieved everything or solved every problem or lived without challenges. But because they had each other, and they had their family, and they had built a life that honored both their pasts and their dreams. The millionaire and his former teacher, unexpected lovers, forever partners, living proof that sometimes the most important lessons happen outside the classroom, and the greatest successes have nothing to do with money or status and everything to do with love. Their story wasn't finished. Alina would go to college eventually, the twins would grow up, new challenges would emerge. But they would face it all together, the way they had faced everything, with love and partnership and the unshakable belief that they were better together than they could ever be apart. And that, Zachary thought, holding his wife close under the stars, was the only success story that truly mattered. Not the millions in the bank or the hotels across the world or the awards and recognition. Just this. The woman he loved, the family they had created, the life they had built together from a chance reunion and a decade of choosing each other every single day. It was everything. It was enough. It was perfect. It was home.